This week's edition of NJBIA's Minding Your Business is brought to you in part by AT&T, helping family, friends, and neighbors connect in meaningful ways every day. From the first phone call 140 years ago to mobile video streaming today, AT&T innovates to improve lives. New Jersey's community colleges aligning education to build an innovative workforce. Find out how your business can join and benefit at njpathways.org. And by New Jersey Business Magazine, providing the critical information needs for New Jersey's business community for more than 65 years.
Welcome to NJBIA's Minding Your Business. I'm Bob Considine. Well, if you love nature, chemistry, and food, our first guest today will be right up your alley. Thor Giese is the founder of the popular Thor Science Academy. He's been featured regularly on the Emmy-winning Into the Outdoors television series, and you could see him now in his entertaining video series called Table for 92, where he cooks through the periodic table of elements. This is an original guest, folks. Please welcome to the show, Thor Giese. Thor, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so before we get into the Table of 92, which I'm fascinated by, I just wanted you to talk about Thor's Outdoors Academy. What is it and how did it start and why?
Well, it's an online resource for science learning and based a lot in history,
Right.
natural history, a lot of chemistry, but I am an archaeologist.
Okay.
So that is kind of the basis I jump off of for most of what you'll see on Table for 92 and other science videos
Sure.
that I've created. Table for 92 and Thor's Outdoor Science Academy, it really is a byproduct of the COVID pandemic. That I had come back from grad school. I had been out in Colorado for almost a decade. I get back here. I was hired by New Jersey Fish and Game to be an outdoor science educator on like March 1st, 2020. And that was the last time I heard from him. Yeah.
Timing was not your thing.
Yeah, timing was pretty crazy there. So I had worked as a tour guide, the lead tour guide at Dinosaur Ridge Museum in Colorado.
Sure.
It's world famous. It's where the first Stegosaurus was discovered. There's still bone fossils in the rock on one side of the ridge. On the other side of the ridge, there's 330 dinosaur footprints, and it's rated as like one of the best dinosaur track sites in the world. And I probably, over my career working there, talked to 500,000 people about fossils, science, history, everything. I mean, occasionally the Broncos, how they were doing, you know. But,
Rocky Mountain oysters.
Rocky Mountain oysters, yep. They're delicious. Got a little green Tabasco on it, and yeah. But so people had been telling me forever I should have my own show because, you know, I just worked so long with the general public talking about really complex scientific issues and trying to, you know, break it down into a way that both like a 3-year-old and a 90-year-old can understand and find entertaining.
Right.
And so, we decided to start that because online learning is going to be a norm from now on.
Yeah. Good point. You know, as I've always wanted to ask an archaeologist, what's the coolest thing you've ever seen or found or dug?
Oh, yeah. So, I'm an archaeologist, and, you know, we study humans and the stuff humans leave behind.
Sure.
But I've got this long history in paleontology, too.
Oh, okay.
And so I was on a survey. I got hired to do a survey around Pueblo in southern Colorado and Lake Pueblo. And they were, you know, wanting to know what kind of fossils were around just in case they were going to be building anything. And this is how it always seems to work on these digs or excavations. It was the last day I was there with like 10 minutes of light left. And I just I'm walking down an arroyo, this little area where there's been a lot of erosion, and boom, I see a tooth. And it was a mosasaur tooth.
Right.
So the mosasaur is like the one from Jurassic World that jumps out of the water. That it's not nearly as big as they made it seem in Jurassic World. But I saw this tooth and I was like, that's a mosasaur tooth. And it turned out to be from a species of mosasaur called Nectenosaurus cladastes. Sure. And that was only the fourth. I mean, it's your favorite mosasaur species.
Absolutely,
right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But it ended up being only the fourth specimen of that species ever found, and the first one in Colorado.
Oh, dig it.
And,
pun intended.
Yeah, there you go.
No, that's great.
That was
awesome.
probably the coolest thing I found.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's talk more about the latest project for your Table for 92.
Yes.
This is extremely well done, well produced, very informative. And I have to say, in my entire life, high school, college, whatever, the only class I've ever failed was chemistry. But I loved it. I was always fascinated, even though I was terrible at it. I remember my professor said chemistry is like cooking, just don't lick the spoon. So what got you into this? Why chemistry? Why this whole idea?
Right. Well, in archaeology, chemistry is extremely important on many different levels. Whether it's the composition of rocks that our ancestors were using to create stone tools. Only certain kind of rocks with certain chemical compositions make for the best kind of stone tools.
Right.
Usually, it's a silicate, SiO2, or it's a glass like obsidian. But the chemistry has always fascinated me because, especially with the elements, it is everything in the world that is made up of elements, and the history of chemistry too is absolutely fascinating. It's really been just like 10 generations since we've really gotten a handle on the elements of our world, and gotten down to the point that we can create elements in laboratories.
Right.
So, there's 118 elements known right now, but all of them after 92 are artificially created.
Got it.
That's why this is table for 92 and not table for 118. And who knows, by the time I finish it, there might be 119 or 120 out there.
You never know how things progress, right?
Yeah.
And are these elements, these 92, are they all found in food? Can they be part of food preservation? What are they found everywhere?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, a lot of them are directly in food, and you can just think about that right off the top of your head. Potassium, right? Bananas, and avocados, and all these other different foods. Carbon is in every living thing. Has got carbon. But then you got elements like the noble gases that do not interact with other elements unless you have to manipulate them like crazy to get them to bind with other elements. Like the scientists have figured that out. But and I just love too. A sign of the times and the kinds of people that were discovering these elements. A lot of them were aristocratic or at least gentlemen in 19th, 17th century Europe. So their idea, when they find these elements that don't interact with the rest of the table, they're like, those sound like the nobility. So they are the noble elements. They don't interact with all those peasant elements like potassium, But like those maybe aren't going to be found in foods at all, but yes, they're used in food preservation. Argon is used because it displaces oxygen. So in food preservation, they'll use that. My episode about argon was all about wine because it's used a lot in wine. You can actually buy bottled argon in a gas, and if you shoot that gas into an open wine bottle and then cork it immediately, it's going to make it last much, much longer than it would because it displaces oxygen. Yeah, the
only thing I remember about argon, they said you can't make any chemistry jokes because all the good ones are argon. That was the... It's going to be a long show, folks.
There's a lot of great chemistry jokes out there,
Tell us about where you're filming this. How often is it airing on your website?
So I am filming this in my backyard. I have a beautiful view of the woods behind my house. We've built a little structure, and I have this amazing asado grill, the parrilla. I bought it from Argentina, got it shipped here. I think people down in Argentina, Uruguay, Brazil, Chile, I think they have mastered the art of cooking meat. And I'm a big hunter too. In New Jersey, we have a huge, huge deer problem. So my father actually started the charity Hunters Helping the Hungry.
Oh, is that him?
That's
really?
him.
I definitely knew about
Les
that
Giese,
charity.
yeah. Back in the 90s, they started it, and so far we've provided over 2.5 million meals based on venison that's been donated by hunters.
That's great.
It absolutely is. So the cooking outside, and we film as often as we can. Sometimes it is weather dependent. We actually started filming in January of last year, and so getting a fire started when it's 20 degrees is pretty fun.
Yeah, it's a good thing too once it's up.
Yeah.
But you have a good production crew. I just love the production value, and you deliver everything so well, and it just seems to come naturally to you. And you also have I guess you mentioned it, the geologist stream oven. Is that what you were talking about?
I do. I really do. And it's a total functioning earthen oven. But I collected some really beautiful rocks, and it's like the whole rock cycle is covered in there. Where you've got igneous, metamorphic, sedimentary. I've got all three rocks built into that. So there's some chunks of obsidian. That's really just there for decoration. But the rest of it's built out of really beautiful quartz and really hard sandstones. It's all New Jersey rocks too. But the sandstones that I got in there have trace fossils of ripple marks from an ancient ocean that covered New Jersey.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
So way back
hundreds of
then.
millions of years ago. Yeah, I don't know exactly how old it is because New Jersey's been, beach line at different parts of our history. But yeah, you can see these wonderful ripple marks right in there, and I put a pizza right on top of this that sandstone, and it cooks wonderfully.
That's crazy. Let's talk about some of the elements you've already gone through, Thor. In table for 92. First one, helium. What did you do with that?
Helium, I cooked, because again, helium's a noble gas, so it's not found in foods, and so I cooked fish and chips, actually. Yeah, British, because when helium was discovered, it was just about the same exact time fish and chips was becoming a staple in British cuisine in like the mid-1800s and whatnot. But the history of the discovery of helium was fascinating because it was actually first identified during a solar eclipse in the 1800s by people all over the world. But where the solar eclipse really went through was in a lot of Southeast Asia and in India. And the king of what was then called Siam, like The King and I, that play, he was a huge advocate for the sciences. And there can be an argument made that because of his initiatives, helium was discovered that way. Yeah.
And people raised their voices as a result of this phenomenal discovery.
Absolutely. But again, that is really bad for you. You shouldn't do that. But it is a lot of fun. I mean,
we would never do that.
Never, absolutely.
What about boron?
Boron, I cooked my grandma's apple crisp. It's it's delicious. There's a whole stick of butter in there, so what's not to like. But boron's very, very important in the growth of apple trees. It's a balance of boron is really needed, and so I found tons of great information online from agricultural schools, especially out in the Pacific Northwest, about this balance of boron. That like too little boron or too much, it has disaster level effects on apple crops.
That's crazy. Yeah. I can't believe you're such a wealth of knowledge.
I'm not making anything up.
Is there an element which you're just dreading, which is going to go like, are we going to talk about tungsten stew or something? What's coming up here? Just like, what am I going to do with this?
Some of these elements coming out, it's either like they are in foods, but that's not a good thing because it's literal poison, like arsenic, or cadmium is terrible. Cadmium is a horrible byproduct of coal burning power plants, and so like for cadmium, I did a Gutinger Strake. It's a German-style breakfast sausage, and because it was discovered in Göttingen in Germany. And so that's like my kind of get around with some of these elements that either aren't found in foods at all, or they have disaster level effects on people. Again, titanium was a good one. We've now known titanium dioxide is used as artificial coloring because it's extra white, and so in like icings and things like that. But now there's a lot of evidence out there it's a carcinogen. So I wasn't about to cook with titanium dioxide, so I cooked a bunch of Cornish foods because it was discovered in Cornwall in England, and Cornish game hen.
You can
Cornish
make anything
pasty.
happen. It's like 7 degrees of elements.
That's actually, you know what? I'm going to take that name. I'm going to use it.
I haven't secured a copyright on it yet. What kind of feedback have you gotten from these videos?
Really great, and I don't have an age range like really nailed down for. I really want this to be for everyone because that's what I'm used to
and I think
talking
it is.
through.
I really do.
I mean, again, working as a tour guide, covering everyone. I mean, I talked to every level of society about this kind of stuff. So I want it to be as accessible as possible. But I have gotten a lot of feedback from parents, and they just are loving that this is so well researched. I don't want.
It really is.
I do want to toot my own horn here. I do research these incredibly deep. I mean, I'll read entire books about these elements where it's only going to be a 5 or 6 minute long show, but it's worth going in because there is just tons of terrible misinformation out there online in that educating like sphere. And some stuff at first it might seem it's legitimate, and then they go off some crazy deep end or down some rabbit hole. So I want to, I keep everything as grounded in reality as possible. And so a lot of parents are, happy to see this for their kids to watch shows where they really are going to learn something important and something that will stick with them too.
Last question, Thor. What do you hope happens with this series? Where would you like to see it go?
Honestly, I think this would make an incredible travel show. And New Jersey native Anthony Bourdain is probably one of the greatest human beings that ever lived. But a show in that kind of style, because these elements are, again, everything we need for modern society, for human nutrition, for everything. And they're around the world, and I would love to go and see where they are, the cities where they were discovered, and I mean, again, all over the world with this stuff. That's I think been the most eye-opening part of this journey for me, is just how incredibly important these elements are for, you know, our smartphones, our cameras, everything. I mean, yeah, the smartphone that you have in your pocket, there's about 70 elements in that phone. 70 of the 92 are built into it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and so I would love to take the show on the road and you know, really see how the sausage is made.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Folks want to check this out, both travel channels and the general public. You can go to thorsoutdooracademy.com. You get it. Also go to YouTube, Table at 92. You'll find it there. Great job, Thor. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll be back right after these words.
You're first. First to respond. First to put others' lives before your own. And in an emergency, you need a network that puts you first, that connects you to technology and each other, that's built with and for first responders. FirstNet, the only officially authorized wireless network for first responders. Because putting you first is our job.
Okay, at AT&T, everyone gets our best deals on all smartphones.
Let me break it down. You got your new customers.
They get our best deals.
You got your existing customers.
They also get our best deals.
Everyone
Gets the deals.
questions.
Got it. But why did you use a permanent marker?
Because I want to make sure you remember. I'm going to get a new whiteboard.
It's not complicated. Only AT&T gives everyone our best deals on every smartphone, like the Samsung Galaxy S21 5G for free.
Welcome back to NJBIA's Minding Your Business. I'm Bob Considine. Well, two of the top environmental and energy topics in the news these days is the state's energy master plan and updated flood rules. And both of them are expected to have an impact on New Jersey's businesses and affordability. Here to discuss the latest on all things green, both energy and money, is NJBIA Deputy Chief of Government Affairs, Ray Cantor. Ray, thank you so much for being back on the show.
Bob, always great to be here.
All right, so I'm going to throw something at you. It was 3 years ago today, as we tape this, that Governor Murphy released his plans for his the 2019 Energy Master Plan. What has transpired since then, and where are we going with this EMP?
An awful lot has transpired since then. The Department of Environmental Protection adopted regulations to require all cars and now all trucks to be electrified within the next 10 to 15 years. There are rules that are adopted which are going to cut back on gas energy production, in the state.
Right.
There was a rule that was going to require commercial boilers convert from gas to electricity, but fortunately that did not get adopted. So, but those are just parts of this bigger puzzle. There's an awful lot more going on with the EMP wind development. While we haven't seen, that industry put a windmill in the ground yet, we're about to go out with our third solicitation for over 11,000 megawatts, of wind. So there's an awful lot going on, but there's still an awful lot that's in the EMP that has not come to fruition, and that's part of our concern.
Right. So basically, this was kind of Governor Murphy's 290-page document, which was basically calling for 100% clean energy by 2050. That's the overall goal here, correct?
That's the goal. It's a net zero goal,
right.
But by 2050. And those words do matter because net zero means that you can still have some carbon emissions so long as they're offset somewhere else.
Got it.
But that plan, again, we are in support of being ambitious in our clean energy goals.
Right.
But we want those goals to be realistic, and we want to make sure that those goals or our energy policies don't harm our economy.
Right.
We need to make sure that energy remains affordable. If it's not affordable, then our economy and our standard of living and our way of life, will actually collapse. We need to make sure that our grid is reliable and that our sources of energy are always there when we need them. We've been so lucky, in this country in particular and in the Western world, really, of having reliable energy and affordable energy. It's driven our economy. It's driven, everything that we look around and see and touch, our standard of living, our longevity of life. Again, everything we touch. But if we make the wrong decisions, that could quickly go away.
Right. One of the reasons why we're lucky to have Ray here today is rather another day, the Board of Public Utilities was supposed to have basically a comment meeting on the update of the plan, like today, and it was postponed. So where is this going? And more importantly, what kind of things would you have said if you did have your comments today?
Well, the Board of Public Utilities, as you said, has 3 public hearings scheduled to review their 2019 Energy Master Plan and to make updates to it.
Right.
And we welcome, updates to that plan. But what we were going to say, and what we will say, and have been saying, again, we need to make sure that our policies result. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We don't want to drive technologies or mandate technologies that really aren't practical. Saying 100% electricity for all buildings and for vehicles sounds good, but if trucks can't run on that, if people can't afford the cars, if it's going to cost billions of dollars that people don't have to try to convert their homes, then it's really a worthless plan.
It's not practical.
It's not practical. It's not affordable. But it's even worse because there are other options that can reduce carbon significantly, such as looking at hydrogen, such as looking at renewable natural gas. New nuclear facilities need to be investigated.
Right.
There are a lot of different things that we can do, should be doing, but we're concerned that if you put everything into one box, you're going to squeeze out everything else.
Yeah, you kind of hit on this, Ray, but the plan does call for 100% electrification of New Jersey's transportation and building sectors. I think part of that, maybe we're going there anyway, why it shouldn't necessarily all go that way is not only, can it be done feasibly, but also there's existing investment in our infrastructure under there anyway, right?
Well, again, we've been building up our energy system for over a century right now. We have pipes in the ground. We have pipes in our buildings. We have a vehicle infrastructure that relies on a certain type of engine. To think that you're going to convert that entire energy system over to something different in the next 20 years, it's not feasible. It's not realistic, as I mentioned. And of course, it's not affordable.
Right.
We should be maximizing those resources that we already have, the infrastructure that we already have, as doing that in a manner that reduces carbon. It could be a win-win. And again, we have longer period of time to really achieve our goals. What we have done in New Jersey and what we have done really on a worldwide scenario is set up artificial deadlines with targets that really can't be met, and then everyone's trying to achieve those targets.
Right.
Once you do that, you make poor decisions, which result in what we're seeing in Germany right now, where they're now burning more coal than they ever have.
Wow.
Where they're actually their largest renewable resource, for fuel is wood. They're burning wood there, as opposed to burning cleaner natural gas, as opposed to going to nuclear power and other types of innovative fuels and energy sources that will reduce carbon.
Right. I'm gonna one last question on EMP, Ray. A few things happened in 2022 that our audience should know about. And by the way, the benefit of Ray's advocacy too. In 2022, there was legislation that prohibits the state from mandating electric heating or electric water heating systems for New Jersey homes and businesses, and it was passed unanimously by the Senate. It hasn't gone any further yet. And then last month, as Ray mentioned earlier, the state DEP withdrew a provision in its PACT rules that would require new boilers and buildings to be electric starting in 2025. So my question, Ray, is because of these actions and even inactions, is the message getting through, do you think, to the administration that costs have to be paid attention to more?
Well, I think the fact that the Department of Environmental Protection did not adopt their boiler rule shows that our comments were taken seriously. Again, beyond the practicality of the conversions, the costs issues that we raised, I think got them to pull back, on the adoption of that rule. In our conversations with legislators, they're understanding that some of these proposals are not affordable and that we should not be just banning natural gas. By the way, natural gas is the fuel that resulted in our carbon reductions today.
Right.
So, the energy source that, we use to get off of coal, and that used to be the bridge to the future.
Right.
People
are a thing of the past.
Yeah.
Right?
People are now trying to ban that without any real solution. Again, wind and solar are great. They're parts of the puzzle. They're not the entire solution.
Right.
And that's only the electric generation aspect of it. If we went to all electricity, by the way, for vehicles and buildings, we would need to triple the amount of energy that we have, in the state. Electric generation. It's not all going to come from, wind, solar, and batteries.
Right.
You're going to need nuclear. You're going to need natural gas. You're going to need new solutions. You're going to need hydrogen. You're going to need everything.
You're going to need everything.
You're going to need all of the
Mixed
above.
portfolio, right?
And the way our concern is, the 2019 Energy Master Plan was a one-size-fit-all solution, and one size does not fit all.
All right. Quickly, you got a few minutes left, Ray, to talk about the state's flood hazard rules. Last year, when you were here last time, the DEP was trying to put in emergency flood hazard rules, and I think you and others had kind of argued that this is not an emergency situation. So what is the process now with the flood hazard rules?
Not a quick answer, Bob.
Okay.
There are really.
You could do it.
Well, they did not adopt the emergency rules, but they did propose new inland flood rules, and they're looking to do, later on this year, coastal flood rules.
Okay.
The problem we have with their current proposal with inland flooding, we agree that the standards should be changed. They should take into account climate change and new knowledge that we have about rainfall. The problem is that there are existing facilities that have been in development for years now that are going to be impacted by these rules, and the department is not providing an adequate grandfather provision for them. So there are projects literally which are being planned for outside the current flood zone,
Right.
Which will now be in the flood zone, and they're going to have to start all over again.
Wow.
We're just looking for some balance, in this equation.
So basically, like, there could be some kind of building that already had its standards they had to adhere to. They went through the lawyers, they went through permitting, blah, blah, blah. And they would have to start all over under these certain rules if they haven't started construction.
Yeah, unless they've started literally shovel in the ground and started building, they're going to lose everything and have to start all over again. There's a better way of dealing with these type of projects.
Right.
They've done it in the past. We're just looking for fairness.
Right. And so what is your ask of DEP now? Is it more balance? Is it more time for these certain places?
A couple different things. Either a 1-year delay in implementation, so allow some of these projects to actually finish the permitting process and come forward, or provide a more robust grandfathering provision. If you're in the flood zone right now and you're going to develop in the flood zone, they're giving you a really robust grandfather provision.
Right.
But if you're going to build entirely outside the flood zone, but now you're going to be in, you don't get that. So if you're building maybe where you should not be building, you get the benefit of a grandfather.
Right.
If you did all the right things and you build outside, you don't.
And
It really makes no sense.
Could this be housing too that could be implemented?
We're aware of at least a couple of affordable housing projects that are going to be impacted.
Wow.
One is for the disabled community, and these projects, again, it's not as easy as just redesigning and go ahead and come back in. Financing is tough. Some of these projects, are marginal to begin with.
Right.
And if you make them go back and redesign and start the permitting process over again, and the years that they already spent, a lot of these projects will go away. And there's really no need. There's easy solutions. We're just asking for that right balance.
Well, Ray, we know your voice is going to be heard with the DEP, and we appreciate you bringing your voice here again today on Minding Your Business.
Thank you, Bob. Always good to be here.
All right, and thank you for joining us on NJBIA's Minding Your Business.